Article 1 simply sets out the basis for the UDHR, which is the idea of all human beings being equal in dignity and rights. Article 2 talks about the right to be free from discrimination and no distinction being made between people based on race, colour, sex, language, religion, political opinion, national or social origin, whether or not you have property, where you were born, or any other status. This simply reinforces Article 1 with the idea that everyone is equal in dignity and rights. We would be familiar with this in law in Northern Ireland, and we would know that as Section 75 of the Northern Ireland Order. So while Article 2 is simply a commitment or a promise, in Northern Irish law, that can be seen being played out in action as Section 75 of the Northern Ireland Order. While it's important to know these two basic articles as the underlying principle of the UDHR, it might be more useful to look at some of the articles which have real practical implications. Article 3 of the UDHR protects your right to life, to freedom, and to security of the person. That means that you do not have the right to take another person's life or cause them any harm, and that you have the right to live in freedom without your personal liberty being affected. Remember that Article 3 is not a law, it is the underlying principle. A law in Northern Ireland which protects people would be the Crime and Security Act from 2010. This aims to protect communities by making streets safer and giving help to victims of crime. The Health and Safety Act from 2008 makes sure that people are safe when they're at work, so if you're operating machinery, certain training will have to be put in place. That ensures the security of the person. And on an international level, the Ottawa Treaty of 1997 outlaws the use of landmines. That again protects the right to life of people in the third world, in particular where landmines have been used, and also protects the security of the person, that people are not injured, losing limbs and being killed and so on by stepping on landmines. A question that has been asked on citizenship papers in the past is when certain human rights may not apply. So let's think about when the right to life and security of the person and to freedom may not apply. When there is a war or conflict or a country is under threat, a government may use conscription to force people to become members of an army. That would be removing their liberty. The security of the person and the right to life could also be removed when soldiers are required to enter combat. Their lives are put at risk, and in many cases they will lose their life, or they will be injured in such a way that the security of the person is undermined. However, in exceptional circumstances, it may be necessary to go down this route rather than protect individual freedoms for the greater good of the country. Article 12 protects the individual's right to privacy. You have the right to be protected if someone tries to harm your good name or destroy your reputation. If someone tries to enter your house, open your letters, or bother you or your family without good reason. This right can sometimes conflict with the previous right we looked at of the right to life, liberty and security of the person. Sometimes it's necessary to open correspondence or survey people using CCTV in order to protect life against, for example, terrorist attack. The media can often fall foul of Article 12 by publishing details of people's private lives. If someone feels that their privacy has been invaded, they can ask a court to stop something being published. This is called an injunction. They can complain to the Press Complaints Commission and get an apology if something has been printed which is unreasonable. And they can also seek compensation if something has been published which turns out not to be true and damages their reputation. A good example of someone using privacy laws to protect it from interference in their family is the author J.K. Rowling, who stopped the media printing photographs of her son. Photographs of her son in the public domain could put him at risk. He could, for example, become the target of a kidnap because people will know that J.K. Rowling is extremely rich and that there could be a good sum of money demanded in a ransom. Article 21 acknowledges the right of each human being to take part in the country's political affairs, either by being a member of the government or by choosing the politicians who become the government. It states that governments should be voted for regularly and that voting should be secret. No one should know how anyone else has voted. In the United Kingdom, the Representation of the People Act in 1969 was a law passed by the UK Parliament which ensures that every citizen over the age of 18 has the right to one vote, whether they are male or female. This is another example of law supporting an article of the United Nations, or the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. A key thing to remember is that around the world, not all countries give their citizens the right to vote. An obvious example would be China or North Korea, where even when elections are held, there is only one party, usually the Communist Party, and you've got to vote for them whether you want to or not. In Northern Ireland, the Good Friday Agreement, or the Northern Ireland Act from 1998, states that a Northern Ireland Assembly will be elected by all Northern Ireland citizens over the age of 18. The Northern Ireland Assembly is to be elected by a single transferable vote. That means that when one candidate has received enough votes to be elected, the surplus votes are transferred to the second choice and third choice and fourth choice candidates as indicated by the voter. A major problem, especially for women around the world, is that they are often paid less than men for doing the same job. It's important that this inequality is addressed so that everyone is treated equally. The Sex Discrimination Act of 1975 states that everyone must be treated equally regardless of gender, and within this, men and women have to be protected from discrimination on the grounds of sex or marriage when in terms of employment, education, training, etc. Despite legislation being introduced in 1975 in the Sex Discrimination Act, many problems still exist to do with discrimination, in particular against women, and women struggling to earn the same amount of money as men for doing the same job. The Equality Act of 2010 was introduced to try to protect, in particular, women and simplify the legislation so that equality could be distributed to everyone. The other piece of legislation that would also be important in terms of right to equal pay for equal work would be Section 75 of the Northern Ireland Order, which prohibits discrimination against anyone on the basis of gender. Article 25 asserts the right of each individual to adequate health and well-being for self and family. This doesn't necessarily mean access to the most modern and cutting-edge treatments for things like cancer, heart disease and so on, but what it does mean is a basic standard of health care that should be available to everyone across the world. The right to well-being and adequate health care means things like basic food, enough clothing, adequate housing and medical care when needed, also the necessary social services and security in the event of unemployment, that there may be benefits paid so that people can continue to have the basic necessities of life. Quite often in an examination you'll be asked to evaluate healthcare, well-being, etc., especially in Northern Ireland. When people do not have access to these things, they are not being included, and there is a problem with social inclusion due to poverty in many countries around the world, including Northern Ireland.